Right, going to call to order the May 23rd, 2024 Town of Somerville Design Review Board meeting. First order of business, we have one more person coming. So he'll be here in about 5 minutes, but the first order of business is accepting of the minutes from last month.
There are actually two sets of minutes in there. There's from the April 11th, 2024 Zoom meeting, as well as the April 25th meeting last month.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Right. So first then is signed 605 North Main Street.
So this is a request for a second sign on the property. As most of you are aware, this project recently came through, was completed, and they're looking to get their monument sign for the project. It's unique in the fact that it has three frontages: North Main Street, East 6th North, as well as East 5th North Street. So they are looking to add a second monument sign on the East 5th North Street side. They are permitted by right to have one sign. And according to the ordinance, anything that's a corner or in a situation like this, DRB approval is required. Based on the zoning, it's permitted to have a 6 foot tall, 36 square foot sign. I know you've seen the proposed sign. The Main Street sign they're requesting a slightly larger sign. But the sign on East 5th North Street is proposed to meet those requirements, the 6 feet, 36 square feet. We have discussed an administrative adjustment for that, for the Main Street sign, to give them a little bit more space and height based on the size of the right of way of North Main Street. So I believe the applicant is here, and if you have any questions for them or for me, please feel free to go ahead.
Thank you for coming. I see it on here, but could you just kind of walk us through what the materials are?
It's an aluminum shell or box, if you will, foundation. And then it has cedar cladding on it. And then the tenant panels will be acrylic with vinyl on them.
Alrighty, any questions?
Are the letters North Main Street and 605, are they internally illuminated? Or?
Yeah. No, they're raised metal letters on the address.
So for nighttime,
It's externally lit. It'll be uplit.
so the acrylic panels, are those internally illuminated or
No,
no?
they'll be externally lit as well. They'll just be uplit.
And there's two drawings of two signs and the dimensions are confusing. So which
Gotcha.
sign is this?
That's the
Is this the primary?
That's the primary sign on Main Street. And then the other one. Do we have the newest one, Tim?
This is what I got from
From Colleen?
the
Because
permit.
the second
So if you
one,
go to the section, Tim, well, I don't know if these, well, not that one, the other one.
Oh, sorry. Which,
that's just the.
this is the Main
engineer drawing.
Street side. This is 98 inches. So that's 8 feet.
So what
Tall.
is this on top of 5 feet of what?
That's the foundation. That's for the engineering. That just shows you how we're.
Yeah, that's below grade.
So the ground starts at the 98?
Yes, correct.
So it's 98 inches above ground.
Correct.
And so that's similar to the other side.
Yes. No, the other sign. I'm confused. I wish I would have brought my file. I didn't. The other one was.
The other one is 58 inches tall
Yeah.
above grade.
Right. Thank you.
So which sign is the taller sign?
The Main Street.
Main Street is roughly 8 feet.
Yeah,
And,
the other one is under 6 feet.
4.8 feet.
And was it the ordinance that required a smaller sign, or the applicant just wants a smaller sign?
The smaller sign is the secondary sign. We're looking to fit it aesthetically. So it's not,
It's
Yeah.
also very cramped on
Yeah,
that
it's,
side over there. There's not a lot of room. There's a fence, there's a pond, there's the right in, right out.
right.
There's
It's-
parking right in there. So I think the smaller size makes it easier to fit it on that particular location.
More appropriate.
Yes,
Does staff have any concerns?
No, I think because of the multi-tenant nature of the building, the taller height on North Main Street is acceptable. I was planning on doing an administrative adjustment for the height on that sign, which is within the allowances of the ordinance. I think the smaller size and the East Fifth North Street location is more appropriate. So I think they kind of offset a little bit. It's more of a backside. There's only access to the 111.
3 tenants.
Yeah, so they only have access to 3 tenants on this side that actually would be utilizing
Oh.
this entrance. There's no wraparound. The other tenants all have access from the other parking lot.
And their addresses, all of their addresses are 605 North Main, even though there'll be a sign that says North Main Street on Highway 78.
Yeah,
Any objections? Or any thoughts or concerns?
so really just to clarify and make sure that we're all on the same page, you're just approving the second sign.
Okay.
The rest of it, I'm doing.
Any further discussion? So would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any, no further discussion? I'll signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Alrighty, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next is 829 Travelers Boulevard Townhouses.
All right, so as we remember, this is for 2 projects under separate applications, but they are being handled in the same manner as a unified development. So the first, the upper level ones actually include this lot here. So these 4 lots on the north side of Oak Brook Lane. The other parcels are these 3 that front on Travelers and are at the corner of Oak Brook. So we've been handling it as a single unified development. So it received conceptual review at the March 28th meeting. And based on the UCMX zoning, garages cannot face the primary frontage, and this layout meets that requirement. Townhouses along Oak Brook Lane on the north side are have not been brought forward to address the street to preserve a number of existing trees on site, which is strongly supported by the Tree Protection Board. They have, however, been adjusted per comments by the DRB at the last meeting. So they have addressed that concern. They've reoriented the buildings as well as adding sidewalks as requested along all of the frontages. There's a mix of 2, 3, and 4, and 5 unit buildings. Finished materials include horizontal and board and batten. Roof materials are to be shingles. Windows are trimmed out properly with shutters proposed on some windows on the public facing facade. An end gable roof line with 512 slope. Each unit has a front facing gable. Trim defines the individual units. Colors and other material choices have not yet been provided, but it is still preliminary. the applicant has provided detailed comparisons of the proposed elevations. So at this point, I will turn it on over to the applicant and allow them to present their project.
And is it okay if we can't do that so the board does not expect? Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members, Jeff Roberts, JJ Art Development. We appreciate the privilege of being able to present our Travelers Boulevard project on preliminary. We felt as usual, the conceptual hearing was helpful in getting comments. A good many we were able to incorporate or manage to massage the intent of what some of those comments were. And we appreciate the process as it makes it a better project. And we study these things. We carefully looked at each comment, and we think we are presenting an extraordinary project. There are some things that in the memo that Patrick handed out, some comments, but there were some additional comments that the board made that just inadvertently weren't in some Tim's comments. But Patrick will walk through those things as we go over the changes, and then Marie Prier, our landscape architect, will just go over some of those particular additions. So again, this project, as we said the last time, was really geared as a home ownership product for the missing middle, not geared towards a entry-level product, but a price approachable product that a young family can start in very close proximity to all those public facilities, where the why is that the county is putting in all that money to it's walkable, bikeable. So it's a pretty cool project. One of the first things is the board asked us to consider 8-foot front porches. We took a very deep dive into figuring out how we can accomplish that. And for various reasons, which Patrick will explain, having to do with the bump out of the powder room that comes onto the porch, saving those trees, and some other factors, we were unable to do that. But we also looked at the intent of wanting to do that. Even though the UDA calls for a 6-foot porch, we looked at the 8 feet, but we also thought that you wanted or suggested maybe some additional visual relief on that elevation. And we think we have addressed that in a very good thought, which Patrick will show you in the renderings on those end units. Public sidewalks and streets we incorporated. We certainly have variations in the facade, and Patrick will get into the retention ponds and some of the engineering, which requires us to do it in a certain way. Okay, from rotating the buildings, we were able to, and it was an interesting suggestion, which we really studied, and we were able to do a modest rotation of one of the sites to get it a little more fronting, and it didn't impact the trees to any degree. So we were able to, and we like the suggestion that actually the ability for us to study it and at least incorporated that on one site, which was the one that was more highly suggested. It worked well, and we appreciate the suggestion. So from that, I would like to give it over to Patrick Head, our Director of Development.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So I'm not going to go back through all the site location stuff, if that's okay with you all. You know where it is. Can you go ahead, Tim, and go to the site plan comparison slides? Okay, so this is the lower site, what we're calling site 1, just kind of showing on the right the conceptual, and on the left our current submission. So in this site plan, you can see that we've added sidewalks all along the street front. We've added entry walks to the porches, which we agree we need. And showing, it's hard to see in these plans. We'll get to a floor plan, I'll show it better, but on all those corner units, because of the way the powder room sits in this plan, we weren't able to accommodate a wraparound porch. But we wanted to give, some change, some relief to that end facade. So we've added a bay window which looks into the sort of breakfast area of each of those units on the ends. And so those are called out. One comment on the pond, in consultation with our civil engineer, it's not possible on these sites to do wet ponds. And the reason for that is the ditches that are existing you can see that easement line on the back of the site that we have to use for drainage. Those are about 8 feet deep. And so if we were to try to make a wet pond with the required slope of the pond, to get below that 8-foot level, you have to be about 3 to 4 feet below the outfall to keep it wet. We would basically end up with such a narrow strip of water and it would also be sort of dangerous because it would be so steep that it's just not possible. These are sort of not very deep infill sites that we're fitting these townhome zones. So the pond will have to be a dry pond, and Marie Freer, our landscape architect, will address sort of the planting plan for that and how we're approaching that when we get just a little bit further. Next slide. Okay, so this is the upper site. Similar changes on this plan. We've added the sidewalks as requested. We've added sort of additional sidewalk kind of around, it's not really delineated here, but that triangle piece facing Oak Brook Lane is conceived as an amenity area, which is further shown in the landscape plan, and then sidewalks coming out from all the units. I think there was a comment last time about the rotation of those two buildings that face Oak Brook Lane. That was, we agreed with that. We sort of studied that and found that we couldn't quite rotate the buildings parallel to Oak Brook Lane without getting rid of some of those grand trees that are there in the triangle. But we were able to rotate it to kind of make a gesture towards that road. And we agree, we feel that it just feels better on the site. So we went ahead and made that change. Next slide. And then looking at the floor plans, that the left plan calls out that bay window addition for the end units, and the upper elevation is the newer elevation that shows the bay window. Okay, go ahead, next slide. So this is just a close-up of the plan. We can go through this one quickly. Let's get to the renderings. Oh, yeah, sorry, Marie, do you want to go over the landscape real quick? And then we'll show the renderings.
Good evening. How are y'all? My name is Marie Fryer, landscape architect, and just to add what Patrick is saying, you can see a lot of the trees, they're shaded, kind of transparent. Those are the ones that we're working around. There's a lot of interesting trees that are out there, oaks, pines, and hackberries, that we think are going to be really nice once this is built. Just to supplement a lot of what's already out there, we're going to do canopy trees, to provide shade, and then deciduous understory trees, things like saucer magnolias, crepe myrtles, things that are pretty hardy, that are easily maintained and will provide seasonal interest. And also, we'll layer the landscape so that it gives, some interest to the architecture as well, and plays off the scale and the details of that. And Patrick alluded to the ponds. What we're doing a lot of times with these dry ponds, the thought used to be to just grass them, which is not a very easily maintained situation depending on the grades. Get a lawnmower down there. So what we try to do nowadays is plant them up almost like habitats, with grasses that, are water tolerant grasses sort of at the bottom, and then sort of leading some natives kind of as you go up the shore. And what that does is it allows for a lot of easier maintenance for these. And it's a more intentional look with these dry ponds. So it allows them to function as BMPs, but it's also an amenity there. So, and we'll capitalize on some of the nice areas and the nice planting to sort of pop in some of those amenity spaces that Patrick was talking about.
Okay,
Can
thanks, Marie.
can you walk through the amenity spaces?
Sure.
Where they're?
So we're still throwing those around a little bit. One up there, kind of by the big oak well, I don't know if it's oak, but the big canopy tree. We're thinking we're gonna do a dog park with some fencing, so people, since we don't have yards, everybody can sort of come and gather at the dog park. We've got, our mail kiosk is sort of in a centralized location, that's easy to get to. And then when we go to the next site, we'll talk about, a little gathering space, kind of picnic areas, that we're thinking, but we're just gonna try and build off of that pond to make it sort of a passive recreational little area, put some benches, dog park, that sort of thing.
So if you want to, say you have a young child in the house and you want to go outside and throw a frisbee or a ball or anything like that,
You
where
have an-
would you do that?
You'd have an open space, kind of by our dog park there. There's some areas in between the two, units up at the corner that we were thinking about kind of studying how that could be maybe a little pocket park. And then also on the other project, there's,
The other thing is, this
What's
is
that thing?
about a block from that YMCA site. So part of the amenity of this location is that giant facility, which has ample outdoor space. That's the beginning of the Branch Street Trail walkway, walking path that goes to downtown. There's a lot of outdoor usable space within this community. This is, that little piece of Oak Brook is kind of its own, almost like a neighborhood, if you will. It has some commercial in it, but it's a lot of residential, and they have this giant YMCA, which is now going to be a Dorchester County park that they're starting construction now.
But as a point of clarification, that's not going to be a giant dog park. We're not taking that expansive space all we want for dogs. It'll be a small area. By assets. So it's a place for the members to run around and play with each other. But we're going to try to utilize a significant space, as you mentioned, for all picnic and neighbors to circulate. Walk outside, so we're not going to make a conference at that spot. But we'll figure out how to sort of bifurcate, not necessarily equally, but the dog park likely to be fairly small.
The pushback I'm hearing is from the community is this doesn't have open space on site. The YMCA is publicly funded. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure, or that field is publicly funded, but I don't see the open space to just even throw a frisbee or anything, or with a, that you all are providing.
So this site, you can see that lower triangular area, that's all HOA open space.
What is that? 1,000 square feet? Maybe two?
1,000?
It's probably at most 60 feet.
I would guess it would be bigger than that, 1,000, but.
I mean, the floor plan of one of these is, the footprint of a unit's what? 800, 900 square feet, maybe?
About that. 800. Well, plus those are garages, so not, the garage, counting the garage, you're looking at another 400. So it's probably a unit's like 1,200 maybe with the garage.
But I'm using that to scale, right? You
Yeah,
can take
so
one of your
say you
units
use a
and place
box.
it, so round up, it's about 1,000 square feet.
Based on, triangles, we're talking about at least double.
At its widest point, it looks like it's maybe 60 feet
All right,
on the left.
probably 150. 180 feet long.
Is there a code requirement for amenity space, green space on their property, Tim?
Yes, there is a park and open space requirement. I was just looking for the details right now, to give you that
I
specific.
know there's a fee for it.
A fee?
There's a huge fee, yes.
Recreation
They
impact fee.
recently increased. Yeah, there's a big park and rec fee. for the town.
Do you
So
happen to know how much you're short or
Do I happen to know what?
how much amenity space are you short of the code requirement?
Oh, I don't know I'm not sure what the code requirement is for the area.
It's typically 5 to 10%.
So this is UCMX. The required open space park space is 2% if 5 acres or more. So I don't think combined we're at 5 acres.
I decided big enough to trip that requirement.
So it's because it is the mixed use district, it's intentionally supposed to be more dense. It's supposed to be an urban style. So the park and open space requirement is less than your standard suburban style requirement, which is, as Becca said, 5% open, 5% park, which would result in a net 10% park and open space for a development similar to this. That's not what this is. This is not suburban, single-family home tract development. It's supposed to be like this walkable community, as they've said, close to the park down the street. Yes, it's privately run, but it is publicly funded, private, public
My understanding.
partnership.
IMCA is putting in the land, basically donating the land to Dorchester. Dorchester is making it a TIF district. They're gonna fund it and then YMCA will operate it.
Yes.
If I'm correct.
So it does meet that requirement. And the next iteration, they should provide a breakdown of where that 2% is, even, even though they're below that. I'd like to see what their breakdown of open space is. It can't be specifically the detention ponds, but those areas that they do have set aside are gonna be probably close.
I would say to move it forward, like the triangular space, that just study it really hard. And if you need to push the sidewalk further closer to the building, I would encourage you to do that.
Respectfully, there's a counterpoint to that. Could do that. Push the sidewalk a little further because we wanted to, since these are fee simple, if this was a build to rent, we would have not done that. But the front yards of this project, since these are fee simple, and it is under UDMX, a fairly dense compliant development, we tried to see some little extra land pieces to each tenants and get people with the front yard. So there's a give and take. You can take some land away and put it into this common area, but we were trying to get what we thought was an equitable balance for people to have a front yard to come off here to play around. So yeah, we can take some of that land away and the people wouldn't have, not to say it's generous, but even a lot of urban development as well. This is generous as we could, but still balance some of that green and space, gathering space. But we really want to give these people a little bit of a yard wherever possible.
Makes sense.
Instead of a quote unquote concrete.
So what we're not seeing on here is the lot lines. Are there lot lines that are dividing all of these?
There'll be lot lines divided by our civil engineers.
Yeah.
And the HOA will be controls the roads and green spaces. So and then the drive on. So we a very simple horizontal property routine that again want to keep these as modest as possible. So it's not an impressive expense.
Sure.
Like George Road. But well, that project that has a full amenity, 12 houses. This is sort of a different thing, special to the area. We wanted to make sure, and even there, we actually did subdivision plat and reduced the certain HOA areas, common spaces to seed some extra side yards for the front yards, things like that. So we're trying to be as generous as possible in the circumstance and give people some extra land for the kind of special.
Well, again, moving it forward, if it makes sense to study it hard and see if there's an opportunity for more open space, I would encourage that.
We'll throw it
But
out.
that's,
And try to optimize it. It's a suggestion.
But I hear what you're saying.
Let me ask another engineering question. If you used pervious material versus impervious, does that mitigate the dry pond? And are you able to convert that dry pond into an amenity space?
I have to ask Hannah for a trade link for that, but I don't think so. We'll do the calcs. That's a question. Don't necessarily have an issue, but I think it's more.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to ask that question.
I want to give you a technical
Right,
answer.
okay.
I mean, we'd
Being
love-
economist and finance
I think-
knows how to build and develop, but not.
I think we're in
Big notes
agree.
for that.
I think hopefully we're both in agreement that if you were able to add larger amenity space to your site, it would make your site more desirable.
100%.
But we can see the constraints of the property.
Also, and then it's gonna run all the calculations and, do all the math to see the exact dimension of the pond. If the pond can shrink, we're all for it.
Yeah, we don't want to excessively design a dry
Yeah.
pond. We just.
And have it off limits.
It's like spending extra money on your building foundation.
And if we
No one wants
had
to see it.
and that's an interesting question. That's like, I don't think so. It didn't come up in conversation before, where we do a lot of things.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a technical question. That will ask about long. We will get an answer.
Fair enough.
I'll give you a good answer.
I interrupted, so.
No, it's fine.
I get to.
I'm finished. But well, I mean, you can see the plant material if you're interested, what we're kind of tossing around for the whole development. So, but still studying shade, soils, all of that kind of stuff. So.
While we're on plants, I would consider you to really think about, maybe you have, but what it looks like from the street. I've kind of, looks to me like it's lacking street trees.
Yeah.
So just, I know there's considerations you have to make on placement for that, but just consider what that, you were talking about completing the street. Can additional street trees be added? Just take a look at that.
I think you are adding street trees, right?
Yeah, we
You
should.
go back up to the,
Yeah, it's just, there's not a whole lot of.
so
them.
the dark filled in are new trees and the light are existing trees. Go down to different. So these, they attempted to try to locate sort of bigger trees at the location of existing. Obviously, they're not the exact, might not be the exact tree that's there. Sort of shows the next slide.
Does this show the, or can you describe the HVAC units, mechanical units?
The mechanical units.
to be visible?
Yes, so they would be, on the driveway side. We have like little green space between driveways. So the plan there was to utilize, a short run of fence to divide, on the property line with the mechanical unit, the HVAC unit on the ground on either side of that. That's a view of street view from the lower site. Kind of see that how the building's curved, follow the curve along. Travelers. That shows some of the existing trees. And then that's the upper site with the amenity area. We haven't fully designed how the amenity areas would work. This is just one of our color studies. We're sort of looking at different options on colors, but I thought we'd provide a few of what we were looking at. So if you just kind of flip through those next two pages, sort of see some different directions we've been looking at. Anyway, well, for next mission, we'll have a final.
Adventurous sort of, from a tasteful palette.
The goal is to make it so each unit feels individual. So when homeowners, have these houses, they, can say mine's that one, rather than pointing, I live in that building, third unit if you can.
So it's identifiable as some of
The blue one.
Yeah,
individual
exactly.
homes
Exactly.
instead of just
You may want to consider a different roof material for the porch roof. Because right now that it creates a very kind of bland separation.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, it,
Go back to the renderings. I always think elevations are deceiving, but there you go.
Yeah.
So, not to say
I think it's too much asphalt
too much shingle.
shingle. It may be interesting if it was metal. Just that. To differentiate, this is a porch and this is a roof.
Okay, we can look at that, see what it looks like.
we'll study it and come back, but we would not necessarily have in version weeks that would on various things. So
But I would say differentiated from the main roof.
For the main roof, yeah.
We'll do a study and be able to
Yeah.
show what our conclusions are, but we would not be adverse to that. We would vote lots.
And I assume the shutters would be color coordinated with whatever the background is
Yeah.
versus uniform.
Yeah, I think so. Although if the color palette stays like this, they could be uniform, sort of like the, the brown.
We,
The
we
wood
have
color,
no
but-
reason to make them uniform unless the park actually presents
Yeah,
that way. If it didn't, we would differentiate the colors.
I'd say the
The
one,
goal is how it presents.
you start adding too many colors, it starts to get a little busy, but we'll definitely play with those and see what color looks best.
I would say the end elevations are, well, let me rephrase this. The front elevations are very strong. I think you did a good job. The end elevations don't quite match the front, and they are prominent because of the site and how you orient the buildings. So you may want to study that. There's a lot of siding. If you want to go to the side elevation,
At least the elevations that face the public right away, or are you saying all of them?
I would say all of them, but if you want to differentiate end units. So you take a look at elevation 3.
Yeah, we're not using elevation 3.
Okay.
That was actually, we didn't think we could do the bay windows everywhere when we originally started drawing them, but then we realized we could, and so we put them in every end unit. So every end unit has
We
the,
thought
elevation.
elevation 3 was a bit lackluster and lacking. That's sort of where I was getting to in the preamble, that we couldn't do that wraparound because of certain significant parameters that we had. But we took the village cube, although we couldn't do the wraparound. We thought some visual relief was.
But even elevation 2.
the other change.
And what's weak, in my opinion, is the powder room. I think the powder room could have, if you put some kind of, I know you probably can't put a window there. If you put some kind of faux window, perhaps there's a
What we did
window box or some kind of planter or something.
Just to remind you of the old elevation, we divided that front to make it look like more like a filled-in porch. And we did try a different siding type in there, but because it was so small, it just didn't feel right. So we've kept the trim to divide it, and we've put the hipped roof on the end there, but
And again, maybe it's the lack of shutters on this elevation. So it just looks like you did a lot on the front.
Yeah.
And you made one attempt on the back, on the side. So I would just restudy that. See if you can bring it up to the level that you brought the fronts.
Any other comments from the board?
Question for you on the site. Well, hold on, let me ask this. It looks like you have alternating floor plans, left, right, right? So for
Yeah.
example, figure number 1, it's left, and then right. One of the comments earlier was the wraparound porch is not possible because of the powder room. If you were to invert those where the powder rooms are on the inside, is it not
Yeah.
possible to do
Can you
that?
go to the plan? Well,
Minimally.
What- the reason
Well,
for it was, I think what he's asking is why we don't flip, why we're flipping
Yes.
them.
Yes.
So if you look
So
at,
you're going left, right, left.
yeah, if
Right,
you look at
left,
the,
right. Gotcha.
we actually started that way. And the reason for it is the architects brought it up, and I think it was a very valid point. The in the kitchen area, you have that sort of breakfast table area, off of it. If it was flipped, the kitchen would be against the outside wall, and that would be on an interior wall. And so what it allows to happen is basically a window at the kitchen table, and so we sort of, I think the bay window also sort of embraces that whole space, makes it a little bit wider, gives you a window. If we flipped the plan, that would go away. We would just have just have cabinets and countertop there because the units aren't big enough to move the kitchen around and change all that. The stair would also flip, all that would change. But yeah, we definitely started that way. And then after studying it, we felt, there's sort of a trade-off, which one is more important. And for us, it was more important to have that interior space more functional and better light and just kind of thought
You
would be
could,
more
I
livable.
mean, you could have the bay window over the countertop, and I see where it's the stove with the sink being on the island, but you could switch those easily, couldn't you?
You would have a tiny window. I mean, it wouldn't, this is, a larger bay window, in front of a table. If you put it above a counter, you're talking
Yeah.
about this type of window, not this window. I just don't think it doesn't feel the same.
Okay. The
And-
other question is more site related. If we could go back to that.
Sure. Oh,
Was-
and just before we get off that slide, I'll just
Sorry.
point out one other thing. On the second floor, you kind of have the same issue. There's a central space that's usable, that's sort of like a really big landing where you could have a TV and a sofa, and you kind of have a little extra room up there. If we flipped it, we wouldn't be able to put a window on the end units in that area either. You just have closet
closet,
against the wall.
yeah.
So it seemed to make more sense to try to get that side to the exterior where we could.
And based on the likely demographics of the homeowner that serves. as a home office.
Yeah, home office, little kids playroom, whatever.
I,
Usable space.
I think to the chairman's point, it's not so much we're looking at it for every building, so much as if we were looking at ones that face the right of way or the public way. So obviously, if you have 2 units, we're not looking at wraparound porches in between them. We're really looking at wraparound porches at the entryway and stuff like that. But yeah, back to the site. Did y'all have any planned signage for this to identify it as Oak Brook or this, that, and the third?
At this point, we have contemplated it, but.
Okay.
We take any suggestions.
Just curious.
But we didn't see it as sort of, we see it as an infill project that holds this curve. That
Fair.
sort of identified that wasn't a massive type of complex, for instance, like Droves or kind of trying to design, whatever you call that.
My preference would be if you can get away with not having a sign, even better.
Yeah, we would prefer not to.
Sure. Kind of my conversation is, if you want one, we'll study it.
Oh, no, I was
We
just,
don't- we-
yeah.
By default, we didn't see this site as
Really see it,
on.
yeah. I think it really feels, I don't know if you've been on this street or not, but the sense of coming around that curve, I think having just nice residences along it, it's gonna fit in well.
Yeah.
And I don't think we need to call it out as like, this is this place. It's part of Oak Brook and
Sure. So I do site plan review. So that's when I don't see something, I ask the
Yeah.
question. So for example, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think we covered in this last meeting, we're not planning on dumpsters. You were planning on rollouts, correct?
correct.
And those were going to be stored in the garage.
2 garage.
Excellent, okay. Now, out of curiosity, with the amenity, the kiosk, are those not required to be ADA compliant, accessible? Because I don't see
I think they would be. I mean, they're just shown on here with,
okay, I don't see sidewalk to it, for example.
oh, aren't those sidewalks, Marie? Or am I looking at it differently? Yeah, they'll be designed to be ADA. I'm sure of that. Yeah,
Sure, sure.
with,
And then for sheer curiosity, why is there 2 entrances on the northern end?
2 entrances, what, sorry?
On the northern end?
For
Yes,
this
sir.
parcel?
Yeah,
It really had to do with the trees. We were trying not to take out the tree in the middle. We would have had to,
I mean, like, could we just eliminate the one on the right, for example?
oh. It would make a really long dead end road for fire trucks. So if we-
250 feet's the max, I believe, for Appendix D.
I think we would have to, I still think we'd have
Okay,
to
just
provide.
curious. It's 30 units.
So
In Appendix D, it's 30 in the state of South Carolina and North Carolina.
I think you'd have to add a T at the end.
Okay, no worries.
So you
Just
would,
curious.
you would still have that space taken up. It would just be a fire truck turnaround instead.
No, no,
Yeah.
no. Just mean like a lot of asphalt for no reason, but that makes sense.
It also makes it better. For a garbage truck, recycling truck getting out of it.
I think it's better for the homeowner as well.
Yeah,
I'm
I do
sorry.
too.
I do.
I don't love those dead end
But on that
streets.
end unit and I've got to go off.
Any other questions?
Any other questions, comments? Anything else you'd like to add? We need to talk about anything else? All right, so they're asking for preliminary approval on both as two items. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
A second?
I just want to amend the motion with comments.
Of course.
I'll
Yeah.
second.
Okay, further discussion?
Mhm.
So you're accepting of the motion, I'm
Yes.
assuming. Yeah, it's
Right.
approved with comments. Okay. And this will be, can we do it for both or we need to vote for each separately?
They are technically separate applications, so,
Okay, we'll take care of it. All right, so for the first item, 829 Travels Boulevard, we have a motion for approval. I'll say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, for the second Travelers Boulevard, a motion for preliminary approval with conditions.
I'll second.
Second, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it. And ladies,
Have a good night.
have a great night.
All right, next is North Maple Street, Parker's Kitchen.
so the second or third item on the old business is a request for preliminary approval for a proposed new Parker's Kitchen on North Maple Street at the northwest corner of Maple Street and Business Park Road, property zone GB General Business. The staff comments are as follows. An application for tree removal and tree protection board approval has been made, and the plans did receive conceptual review in May. The applicant has flipped the site, bringing the convenience store closer to the North Maple Street right of way and placing the gas canopy to the rear. A pierced brick wall detail has been provided and is shown in the renderings. It's not clear the location or length of the wall. The plan shows two signs because this is a corner lot. The second location will need DRB approval. 36 parking spaces are shown on the proposed plans, which far exceeds the required minimum. The architecture of the building is the prototype Parker's building, including whitewashed brick, timber details, and standing seam metal roof. The gas canopy is a basic canopy with a hipped gable roof and standing seam finish. No changes have been made to the proposed building or canopy. I'm gonna just scroll on down past the context photos and I'm gonna land here on the design narrative if that's where you'd like to start.
Yeah, sure.
Hi, my name is Valerie. I am representing HFA Architecture. So as mentioned, the design of the building hasn't changed since we last spoke or last reviewed it. But overall, the design of the store is prototypical, and we have whitewashed brick, and we use a lot of neutral colors. So nothing is gonna be out there. Nothing's gonna hurt your eyes. We have a lot of different varying of planes, which is mentioned in the code or the ordinance, which helps to add a lot of visual interest. And there is a lot of different coursing of brick throughout. You'll see cornice at the top with the 3 layers of brick that come out. And we have horizontal soldier courses throughout. There are a lot of wooden details on the exterior, such as the light posts that wall sconces that come off the building, and these really cool rafters that come off and support the canopies. As mentioned, it's silver standing seam roof on the canopies and the main tower roof. And we have clear storefront windows that are inset within the wall plane, so more changing of planes for that visual interest. The storefront windows are also longer than they are wide, and each side is bordered by stacked brick course, while the top of the storefront is framed with that soldier course I mentioned before. We also have a oil tank that is the piece of mechanical equipment that sits at ground level, but we are planning on having screening around that matches the building as to hide that. So no one's gonna see that. But that is the basic vibe of the building. Do you guys have any questions with that?
Can you start with the site first? Because I
Yeah,
think the building orientation changed from what we originally saw.
yes.
So can you start with that and then we can talk about the architecture?
Absolutely. So yes, as you can see, pretty dramatic shift in the site orientation and the layout. Just to give everyone a quick reminder, this is part of the West Hill development. And the two entrances that you see have been coordinated with the master developer, and will serve as not just entrances into, this proposed project, but also to West Hill itself. As you can see, they will continue on to the page west there. So the building is now facing North Maple, with the canopy to the rear. Some additional changes you might see are some additional stormwater management areas. This is due to the topography and our current outfall, which is a ditch that lies to the west of the property. And so that's kind of what we need to get offsite at this point. And, in the future, that will be picked up by future developments and, make its way to the outfall. We have been, as I mentioned, we've been in coordination with the West Hill development. We have been reviewing it with their design assistance team, and we have some outstanding comments that we will be working on with them, and really wanted to get your guys' eyes on this as well. But we feel in a really good spot. We've been collaborating well together with that, with the development team. I'm trying to think. So what the other thing that you're seeing here that was not previously able to happen on our previous site plan is the area on the southeast corner is a tree save area. So we're able to save several. So this is all planted pine, but being an entryway into Somerville as well as an entryway into the West Hill development, we thought it appropriate if we were able to pull things away from that corner. There's a dozen or so existing pine trees there that we're able to keep. We'll be underplanting them. And we think that's going to be a nice entry into the site, into the development, as well as, off the highway coming into Somerville. The patio area that you see there, right directly to the east of the building. There you go. There's the trees that you can see there. We were able to save 2 trees within that area as well, by offsetting the patio areas. We just think it'll lend some some ambiance and kind of like nice character to the site, and have a good entrance, into the town itself. There's, lots of different other things that we could go over, but I think those are like the main shifts. We are maintaining a wall, blocking any vehicular use areas. We do have some tricky utilities in the front. So kind of working with staff, working with the West Hill team, we kind of got the building as close as we can get. We're still going to be able to provide a nice landscape in the front. However, we do have many utilities kind of stacked on top of each other right at the road there. Some other additions you'll see here are the introduction of a sidewalk along Business Park Road, which will front the length of our development, and tie into the sidewalk on North Maple. We also have introduced a more central pedestrian access from North Maple into the site, as we anticipate picking up those pedestrians walking along, and hopefully what will be a very vibrant corridor, as West Hill gets developed. But please feel free to ask any questions on the site. you got a brief intro on both the site and the architecture at this point, but we are here to help answer any questions.
Looks much better.
Yeah, we're happy with it.
So we went through the experience with Parker's Kitchen on the sawmill
Yep.
project on
Hmm.
Berlin Myers.
Very familiar.
And our number one focus collectively was how do we make the back of your building appeal to the public? So what have you incorporated in this building because it's similar?
Right, absolutely. So we can run to Tim, I guess some of the elevations or even the renderings, and we can talk. But basically, we tried to take lessons learned from that and incorporate them into this project. So you can see some of the green screens are still there, right? So they're trellis, I should say, right? In which we will be able to grow some plants to help break up the facade, right? Once again, it's a common thing I'm sure you guys run up, and the same thing we ran up against on Berlin G. Myers on Sawmill is, back of house, right? Facing front of road. It was the way the store needs to set up and function, but we still need it to be able to look nice. So what you're looking at is a similar approach that we ended up, at the Sawmill development for this one. Do we have maybe like front elevations, Tim? We kind of talk through some of the details on the front that are, kind of help it make well, I say that's really the front of the store. So back of the store, but this is a nice rendering.
Do you want the actual elevations or the renderings?
He wants the renderings.
All right, that's what I need to know.
What the board wants. Although I don't. Yeah. There. Yeah. Okay. So here you go. So you can see that's about as close as we can get the landscaping, especially with the trees. And we actually, some of our recent comments with the West Hill was to get even more trees across the front there and kind of make it feel almost like, more like a streetscape than a front foundation planting, and something that West Hill is hoping to continue down the development. Kind of a weird angle because it's blocking out some of the green screens there, but we're able to incorporate those as we did on the last project by having some, trellis in which we can grow plant material and to help break up the, the large facade. And then I'll let the architect chime in with architecture things.
So since this faces the North Maple Street, Parker's Kitchen prototype is really great in the way that it has a rear entrance, and the rear entrance is also very exciting because we have the higher tower. We have the same canopy roof that reflects on the main entrance of the building. And then you also have the trellises as were mentioned. But yeah, I think the landscaping does a really good job at showing like this is a good pedestrian entryway. And then the just overall building and the signage at the front or at the rear of the building is just really welcoming. And as was mentioned, I think that pedestrians will definitely be drawn in, which is really a really good quality.
So I understand this is preliminary, but it doesn't come close. I mean, it's very close. Let me rephrase that. It comes close to Sawmill, but it doesn't replicate it. And I think we went through a lot of time and you guys went through a lot of effort to get to a place where the board could approve it. Are you willing to replicate Sawmill on this side, on this elevation?
I can speak to that.
Sure.
My name is Daniel Benisrael. I'm real estate development manager with Drayton Parker Companies. I mean, we certainly consider that if that's what the board wanted to see, we'd consider modifying the rear facade to have it more closely resemble the Sawmill project. But yeah, we would certainly want it to be affirmative that the board wants us to move in that direction before moving forward with it.
Sure. And then another comment, Sawmill used natural brick and you want to use whitewash or white painted brick. Is that again set in stone or are you willing to again, match sawmill with the natural brick?
Sure. So let me answer that first by saying that I know that we kind of characterize this as our prototypical building, and it is. However, I would say in our case, our design goes far beyond what you would consider a prototype of other retailers and even other C stores. We feel that this design is very aesthetically pleasing. We have the relief on the roof with the cornice roof, the towers, the recessed brick, herringbone, soldier courses, the base course, and the contrasting base. So we've put a lot of effort into designing something that's more than a prototype, if you will, and that's feels more custom. With that being said, the lime wash finish is our signature finish. That's what we apply to all of our new locations, not only in South Carolina, but also in Georgia and in Florida, as we're venturing down to the Jacksonville market currently. So we would prefer to finish it in lime wash. We have deviated, and we're planning to do that at Sawmill. It's a very good lime wash finish. It's applied by hand. I forget the architectural terminology. I think it's remibio. Is that it? It's how it's applied. And so it gives it a very, classic look. But with that being said, I mean, that's something that we would prefer to finish it with the lime wash. However, if the board was adamant that it had to again resemble the Sawmill project, then we would be compelled to consider that as well.
We could show some build examples of the lime wash in the area if you guys were interested, if you haven't seen it. But it is nice, yeah.
Yeah.
My question would be, this is part of the development surrounding it, correct? So what is going to be the building material for the rest of the development? Because if it's going to be red brick, it's going to look out of place, is it not?
I don't think that would be out of place. We would see a lot of Salisbury style, Somerville wood too, that.
You bring up a good point. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the recommendation for the red brick also came from the landlord, if you for the
master developer, yeah,
the
that's
master
correct.
developer, which to your point, the intent is to have it blend with the larger development and the other finishes on the other buildings. Here we don't have that standard, I guess, in place yet.
Correct.
And we have obtained approval for the proposed finishes from the master developer.
And you might say that, we're also going to be setting the tone as we're, going first. And some of the architectural recommendations are not as, they weren't the same as it was in the Sawmill as far as, kind of these finishes. They wanted the natural brick. So it's a little bit looser in that regard.
I think my concern is obviously this is going to be a major corridor into town. Y'all are the first ones, and that's good that y'all get to set the tone, but that's also concerning that y'all can set the tone and nobody follows behind y'all, and what protections the town have to make sure that this looks aesthetically pleasing and fits into this natural environment that we're looking. I mean, I see the one on College Park. Obviously, I'm intimately familiar with the one in Moncks Corner, which is a separate prototype to your point, right? Because you have rentable spaces on the ends of that one.
Yes, that was an outfit from a previous user, or a reuse of the existing building.
So I just that would concern me is, I know you have approval from the master developer, it sounds like, but how this fits into we're looking at one puzzle piece. I don't know what the puzzle is. I'm just concerned about it.
So, I mean, I think one thing to think about with that is, with each West Hill piece, they will have to get an internal West Hill approval and a DRB approval as it goes along. So, we have 2 levels of approval for each project moving forward. So I think it's kind of, up to the master developer and yourselves to, you know, kind of make sure that it, you know, it looks harmonious in the end.
Is there, I'm new to Somerville for about 13 months. Is there another place in Somerville that uses this kind of brick in a major corridor that's historic or Somerville-esque? Because I mean, I'm with you. I mean,
Mhm.
we start this and then every other domino behind it has to either A, be forced to use this whitewash brick, or then B, you know, it looks like a hodgepodge. But if we are trying to convey Somerville, where else do we see this kind of brick in this lime wash?
I think they have one out at the ponds, don't you?
Yeah.
Ponds.
Yeah, so, yeah, we have a store at Dorchester and 17A at the Ponds that has similar finish.
Daniel,
I'll-
does the Knightsville location have the whitewash finish?
It does,
That was the first one.
it's the first one that we did, and the one on Latson Road also has the lime wash finish.
And I couldn't speak to every other project, but I'm sure, you know, Tim could probably point out other projects in Somerville with whitewash brick.
Yeah, I believe you guys have the three stores, the Knightsville, the Ladson Road, those both are completed. And then you have Sawmill, which was just approved. This would be your fourth location within town.
What prevents focusing on the entrance here? And we appreciate that you are putting a major pedestrian entrance in the back of your store. But what prevents it from having the same architectural articulation that you have on your front? So that it still seems secondary in context.
Sure.
Can you replicate the primary entrance on this side also?
It's secondary because it is the rear of the store. And so on the front of the store, you have the larger tower with a grander entrance, if you will. It's designed that way for functionality, given the program of the space. And so you come in, you have this kind of foyer kind of entryway that allows the customer to make choices about where to navigate throughout the store, to the kitchen area, to the convenience offerings, or up to the counter. Whereas the rear of the store, again, we provide access, and I think aesthetic access. However, it's all based on the program. And so once you enter the store, you're going into an area behind the service counter for the kitchen, or to an area, a storage area behind the actual coolers themselves. So there's limited space. I forget the dimensions, but probably a space, you know, I would say about 8 to 10 feet, maybe.
Yeah.
From the storage area to where the actual service counter for the kitchen begins. And so it's limited in area. So that kind of constrains us as far as how we can design that space. But I think we've done a good job at making it, you know, aesthetic and welcoming. With the awning, the overhangs, we have the wood beams coming up to support the awnings, the lanterns and light fixtures, as Valerie mentioned. One of the things that we could consider to, I guess, add some embellishments to this facade would be to consider putting awnings over the brick recesses with some uplighting, or I guess to give it that, you know,
More presence.
a bit more of a presence, bit more, make it appear to be more of a front facade, if you will, and not make it so obvious and so secondary, as you put it.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
So I think if you were able to replicate, and I'm not 1,000% on board with the color of the brick, but certainly the articulation and the details and the lighting and everything that you did on Sawmill. If you replicated that here architecturally, that would certainly be favorable.
On the rear of the store.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
like this
Okay.
facade here we're
Yep.
looking at, yeah. Well, we definitely have access to those plans, so we can definitely take them. Yeah.
Yep. Yep, that shouldn't be too hard.
Yeah.
Tim, can you go to slide 111? One up. What are the height requirements for that screening wall?
The, so typically in a front yard, it would be, 3.5 feet if solid, 4 feet if open. For a screening standpoint, the ordinance does require it to be a minimum of 36 inches. So, this looks a little bit tall. I don't know, but it's a minimum of 36.
Yeah, me personally, I would just rather the shorter solid wall than the taller spaced out wall.
It's 42 is what it's shown at, but I don't think we have any complaints going down to 36.
Not at all.
We just wanted to make sure we were, taking care of the screening. But yeah, if everyone's on board for 36, I don't think you're gonna get any arguments here.
36 and solid.
Yeah.
Oh, for solid, so we would be able to do a Pierce brick.
Yeah.
Just solid.
Yeah. Yeah, something to break it up a little bit, yeah.
Just a suggestion. I'm not a design professional, but that herringbone would look really good too. If you're gonna make it solid anyways. I don't know what that does cost wise, but I'm a sucker for herring. Okay, I got you.
I also want to visit the gas canopy. Again, sawmill, which we spent a lot of time on, is has more aesthetics than this.
Yeah, so that's where we started with Sawmill as well. And that was driven, the final design of that canopy at Sawmill, which is unlike anything we've ever done at any of our other locations, came as a result of the master developer's preferences. We went back and forth with them on that, and in the end, they won. Which I think it's gonna look really nice. I really do. And we were working on a design that, didn't quite get there, but we were trending towards something that we thought they were going to accept. However, they took it a bit further. So in the end, we're gonna do that canopy there. We'd like to start with this standard mansard canopy design at this location. We think it looks really nice. Again, it has the I think it's like 6 feet tall brick columns, brick around each of the columns at each of the product dispensers. We have the wood the bracketry is also on those columns going up to the soffit of the canopy as well. Yeah, it's going to look really nice. We have the standing seam metal roof finish,
Matches the store.
which matches the store. So I mean, we'd like to go with this look, but we certainly be open to suggestions. We don't want to do the canopy that we did or that we're going to do at Sawmill, just to be honest. But we're also willing to hear what the board's desires are.
I would say, like what you did for the sawmill developers, and that you gave them a unique solution. I think we would want a unique solution here also. So it doesn't have to mimic the flying V of sawmill, but certainly maybe there's more wood undercarriage. Certainly there's some, more, we love to say low country, but again, I think you have a start here.
Sure.
I think if you use more timber, more wood on the undercarriage and maybe along the fascia, I don't mind the shape, the mansard, the slope shape. I think
Okay.
that's fine.
Okay.
And I don't know if you ever looked into incorporating any green sustainability efforts into your architecture. Certainly a gas canopy would lend itself for that. whether it's a green roof, whether it's something. So, that's something that Somerville wants to start encouraging sustainability, and hopefully businesses would want to embrace that also.
Sure.
So again, if you can just ponder that and
Okay.
perhaps come back with some things.
Sure, we will study that. We have done, um, uh, like, green screens or trellises, if you will, on the ends of our canopies and other locations. I think we have it at Store 80 on Dorchester Road and Highway 17A. I think that's the last one that we did.
And yeah, maybe it is a landscape
And so we
solution.
grow the Confederate jasmine or,
Jasmine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. On,
Creeping thing,
yeah.
one of those,
It takes a while to mature. We stopped doing it because of that. It's, probably like 3 years.
Minimum, before it starts actually going.
Yeah, before it starts actually going. And so we haven't done that, I think, on the last maybe 10, 15 builds. But that's something we can consider. One of the things that we did discuss, I think after our last meeting where you mentioned adding some embellishments to the canopy to make it look a bit more architectural and structural. So one of the things that we did consider was increasing the height of the brick on the columns. And kind of maybe adjusting the bracketry a bit, bring it down, make it a bit more visible, and then adding some wood beams or faux wood beams under the soffit to run either kind of lengthwise under the soffit, and so you give it that more architectural look and feel. So that's something that we can consider doing if that gets us closer to meeting your approval.
Great ideas. Any other questions, comments? Anything?
On the site, you'll have basically what would appear to me, I know this is not what it's intended to be, but appear to me to be streets.
They actually are intended to be pretty much streets.
Okay.
Internal, yeah. So these are roads that will continue on.
Sure.
And so we're following the guidelines within the West Hill development guidelines as to, how those streets look and, and basically, this is going to be the first entrance into the development. So yeah.
So only sidewalk on one side is, I'm familiar with West Hill. I apologize.
So that is literally just due to spacing, and where we can do it. So yeah, we have sidewalk at least on one side, as you can see on both options, as you continue in, to the site, and, which provides access into our site too, which is great. But yeah, just for following the guidelines, sidewalk at least on one side.
Yeah, I think it'd be nice if you could get spacing at least on that access road from the business park road to get them on both sides.
We can take a look at that. As you can see a little bit. I mean, I think the one thing is when we nail down the hydro and understand
the shelf, yeah,
and see if that works out.
Copy
But
that.
certainly, because that's the one thing, we need to nail that down. But we feel good about that. This is enough space, but possibility of shrinking it once we get those numbers crunched.
Appreciate that.
Will those be private drives throughout the rest, or is it going to be publicly dedicated? I'm not sure.
The road's private within West Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah, private.
Okay. Because if it was publicly dedicated, they need sidewalks on both sides.
Yeah, no, private is the intent.
Our intention will be on the public road.
So if you're coming south along Maple Street, there is no left turn into your first driveway? Is that prohibited?
Yeah.
So to get to, you have to go along.
Business park and make a left in there. Yep. That is not our preference, as you would imagine, but that's that's what we could get.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Do we have a motion to vote on the preliminary design for Parker's Kitchen?
So moved.
Say that again.
So move, I make a motion to approve.
So second?
With comments.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sure.
I apologize. I thought that was part of it. Yes, yeah. Make a motion to approve per comments from the board and recommendations.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Thank you.
So the second item on the agenda under new business is a request for preliminary approval of a proposed new amenity center. Property is zoned PUD, planned unit development. This is located in the Shoemaker, Mocker, I'm not positive, development on the south side of Dorchester Road, west of Orangeburg Road intersection. The development of the property is underway for residential development. The amenity center is required to be reviewed by the DRB. The amenity center includes covered gathering space, bathroom facilities, and pool equipment room. The proposed site includes the pool and a children's playground. 34 parking spaces and 6 bicycle parking spaces are proposed. Landscaping for the facility is adequate. All materials should meet minimum planting sizes according to section 8.7.1A. Fence details should be provided. The amenity building is proposed to be finished with a gable standing seam metal roof. Materials have not been specified, but horizontal and board and batten siding is shown. 2 cupolas are located on the roof. I'm done. I'll turn that over now to the applicant.
Thank you. I think that was a great introduction. We've got Justin, the architect, on the Zoom call here. Just to add a little bit more to the location. This is about 1,200 feet off of Dorchester Road into the community. The community as a whole is 340 units. We are not in a flood zone, and there's a pond directly behind us that we're outfalling to. On one side, we've got a wetland. That's where that stormwater pond is discharging to. Behind us, we've got headwaters of the Ashley River and probably about a quarter mile to a half mile of marsh before you get to the true center part of the Ashley River there. So it's a pretty wooded area. It's a pretty quiet area back in the back of the neighborhood. And David or Justin, sorry.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, evening, everyone. Yes, we want to scroll down to the amenity building itself now that we have the location, but looking for preliminary approval on our amenity area. We're creating a small park, open lawn area with a playground and a 2,500 square foot pool with a organic deck surrounding it. And then we also needed to create a small little structure to house the pool equipment, the restrooms, required restrooms, and add a little covered space for the community and the patrons. You want to scroll down to anything else there? Keep going. We provided our landscape plan with material samples. Keep going, please. The actual structure itself is a simple structure, single gable with cupolas attached. We're trying to downplay it. It's for a pool equipment. The shower, or not showers, excuse me. shower and changing areas in the restrooms, and just a little covered area. We want to try to keep that over to the side and just treat it as a simple backdrop with a little bit of simplistic elegance, let's put it that way. The Low Country. Go to the next one, please. Layout. We've, from the conceptual, we had a couple comments on the restroom count versus occupants, and we've made some adjustments to the site regarding that. So we are in compliance with any of the restrooms. Continue. And from an aerial view, it's again our open lawn area. It's connected to the pool, a little playground, and then our backdrop maintenance building. The parking right lot to the north. What was it? 30, Jason, was there 32 spots to the north that has the main access gate into the main pool area? Or they can go to the right and access the playground area. I think that's where we are with this. We're looking for preliminary approval on this plan.
Art, Tim, can you tell me how many lots is proposed for this amenity center?
Believe they just 340 units. I don't know what they're doing on right now with this first phase.
Yeah, I don't know how many of the first phase are either. I apologize, but it is 340 total. And, pretty much the surrounding area around the amenity is currently under construction with phase one.
You said 340 units?
Yeah.
Is
mix of
there going to
townhomes
be
and
multiple amenity centers?
No, sir. No, this is the one plan for the development. There's also a town park at the front of the development. It's land that the developer is turning over to the town. So there'd be some additional open space opportunities there. We've also started some conversations with the town / Dorchester County to potentially open up some additional land in the development to get to some adjacent parcels that the county owns. That's preliminary in nature, nothing I can commit to tonight, but we're working on opening it up to the east there.
Does this development have any access to the Ashley River?
It's the headwaters of the Ashley River. So it's more marsh.
Like a ditch? Up at that?
I've never gone that far back. When you look at an aerial, it's marshy land.
I have,
Yeah.
it's pretty ditchy.
Yeah, gotcha.
So there's no opportunity to engage with that. That was kind of the question. There's no ability to get a boardwalk down there, because I think where our heart's going with this is the amenities seems kind of small.
Sure.
For 350 homes.
Right.
I think that, is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what is planned for the green space on this slide? Is that just kind of an open green?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Okay, do you have any concerns outside of the space, the size? Do you have any concerns with what they have presented?
No, I think this is fine. I mean,
The only thing I don't, it's just this blank, the 3 panels with nothing on it. I don't know, it might not bother anybody else, but I'm like, you're sitting at, you're enjoying yourself, you're sitting there cool and you're looking at this long blank wall.
Well, the middle one is gonna be bathroom, if I'm not mistaken, and the one on the right is their pump house.
Yeah.
The one on the left, though, is an event space, it looked like. Oh, no, it's just bathroom. Okay.
it seems odd that you're going to have 350 units or 340 units and you're going to have 2 picnic tables
And 8 chairs.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, and then Justin, I don't want to steal your thunder because you mentioned it, but when you're arriving from the parking lot, and Justin, this may be of interest to you, when you're arriving from the parking lot, what you're seeing is the back end of the building, just a couple of doors. I mean, I like the simplicity and all that stuff, but yeah, but there's There's nothing to look at
Square.
approaching the
box.
building. Yeah.
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 It'd almost be better if it was flipped.
Yeah.
Where the outdoor seating area was facing the parking lot a little bit, because it's a little bit more approachable.
And maybe rotating the, pump room doors or something to the backside or, and dressing up that end, or maybe there's needs to be a porch on both ends. I sense that the most of the pushback is, though, the size of the amenity seems very small compared to the number of homes that are going to be there.
We can bring that to the developer and see what their thoughts are and study that.
Right. Now, as far as the open spaces towards the south, do we, I mean, I guess I would rather have it on the south side versus the north side on this, but it's close proximity for the maintenance guys to come in. I mean, yes, we can landscape the front of that, but we just need to downplay it. The overall building, but as the overall structure, remember, we're going to have signage. We've got phones. We've got there are other pieces that help break up that wall. And the thought was doing the vertical trim and creating those 3 panels help break up that facade. More than likely, we'll have planters in front or along that. So we can study it. I'll talk with the developers on that and see if they want to have an alternate of shifting that building or flipping it around.
Now, Justin, I don't think that's like a firm recommendation or anything, but it's just a comment. And I understand the functionality of having the pump station and the equipment room convenient for the maintenance worker that goes there, but that is of less importance than the enjoyment of the people that are in the space, right? So if the maintenance person has to walk another 30 feet to open a door, so be it. I think the residents have priority. And there's another one that was approved recently, an amenity center that has half the homes. And that porch is probably 3 times bigger. And I mean, it looks good, and it functions. That seems more appropriately sized than this. And I don't know if we've ever denied a presentation, or an applicant based on the size of their amenity, but this one was, Hart brought it out, but this one just seems grossly undersized. So
I will say we are limited by space here. There were a lot of negotiations with the PUD to get us to this point where the amenity is shown, and we did give some land to the park up front. So I do kind of wonder, where all the upfront work with the PUD, which I believe would have gone through planning commission and all that, lands versus the board's thoughts today. And do we need to bring in the planning department, Jesse, into this conversation? Who's
planning department's sitting right there.
Yes, but not involved in the day-to-day with the PUD. I don't believe in the conversations that we've had with the park.
Well, if you want to go that route, we'd be happy to table it, and you could bring it back next time.
Sure. I think at the end of the day, we're asking for preliminary. It doesn't sound like we're going to get it. So it sounds like that's probably the best bet, right?
It's your call, really.
David, what do you think?
Justin.
Oh, sorry.
This is preliminary. It's as far as the overall spaces. We've got a good sized pool. We've got the playground area. We have this outdoor amenity space. As far as the structure itself, we're talking about a few adjustments on the elevation, and potentially some additional covered area, but I mean, I don't think that I don't know what the early on conversations were with the developer and the PUD and all of that, but I don't think they ever planned on doing a 3,000 square foot clubhouse amenity for the community. So, I mean, I think it looks appropriate for the community, and if we're just talking about size of the building itself, I would love to hear or have a chance to study those options.
Chris, Mr. Chairman, I do want to point out that as was addressed previously, there is land that is to be dedicated. It's high and dry, you know, it's not like they're giving us lowland for future park development. That'll never happen. We were very specific in what we wanted and where we wanted it because we know that this area is developing quickly and will need park facilities that are town owned and operated. So right now it'll be nothing because we don't have a budget to build it out but the land will be there for future use. It'll be maintained by the town. It'll be an amenity. I'm not advocating or one way or the other. I'm just explaining the process behind the thoughts when we brought this property into town and the negotiations that were had regarding those properties and this layout. I mean, it is up to the developer to provide adequate amenities for their residents, future residents. That being said, there will be some space for future town of Somerville amenities to be added to the area.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I think we need to have a better understanding of what all of that is and we need to see it on paper.
Sure.
You know, what is that master plan? Because if you got 6 people up here saying this just doesn't feel right and it just doesn't feel like it's appropriately sized.
We just need to. I understand. Is it building size or is it the pool deck size or a combination of both? That is the concern.
Well, I think it goes hand in hand, but the most obvious to me is the pool building size,
Okay.
you know?
And also, it's not, again, these are the amenities for the people who live there. And even if we were talking about size, it's just you taking the most unattractive part of it and put it to the part that everybody sees. When you drive up and you walk around, I don't even know that this would be possible, even if you had like a porch that came off around to the pool and some other covered space.
Or if the building were rotated
Right.
kind of from what, 45 degrees or
Yes,
something, where
yeah.
you're walking through the building or
Right.
past the building instead of walking to the service yard.
Service entrance, and then
Yeah.
you just got this blank wall and you can't even see those. If kids were if a family had a birthday party on the inn, you can't even see the kids that are swimming in the pool.
And if
so
you're,
to
if you're
speak.
dropping off your kid, you can't, and you're in the car, you can't see the kid can't see you.
Right.
All that. So, I mean, it could be site planning issues as well. Maybe that whole thing with the pool and everything needs to
I got you.
rotate around.
Understood. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, the developer is the one that has the ultimate responsibility in if they think they have built enough amenity to support the neighborhood in a way, you know, or they're not going to sell houses, right? But on the other hand, we have a role in encouraging the developer to build great spaces in Somerville.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
I think it needs a little bit of work.
Understood.
So I think we need to, y'all should consider the stuff we've talked about.
Yep.
But we also really need to have a good understanding of what that PUD requires and what it's showing, how it's all interconnected. If it's public land, then can the public go to that? Obviously, the public can go to that space. Can they go to this space? You know, all that. We need to
Sure.
really understand this, I think, overall design intent.
I do think that this is intended to be private for the residents, but the park is intended to be public for all. And, yeah, maybe in a couple weeks, like I said, we're in some negotiations with the county on some other things that the whole thing might expand a little bit. And I'd love to be able to bring that for you. So we might pause for a couple weeks and see how that shakes out.
Sure. And whether it's, I mean, we can call for a vote or you can withdraw it. At the end of the day, it's the same, you get to the same place.
Right.
So it
Right.
doesn't really matter.
Sure. Don't have, if it's withdrawn, it doesn't really, it's not going to require any type of like re-board approval or any like 45-day wait. Some people have, I think, or something like that. We just
No.
come back whenever.
No,
Yeah.
we'll do whatever you want. Right now, you're asking for a preliminary approval, so we should take a vote unless you withdraw.
We can withdraw. What do you,
Yeah. Justin, I think that's sounds like the route to go.
let's do that.
We would like to withdraw the application at this time.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thanks all. Have a good night.
$38 chairs out there are counted. That's 10 houses per chair.
So the next item on the agenda is a request for conceptual review of the proposed redevelopment of the property for future church / religious use. Property zoned UCMX, located on the west side of North Gum Street, just north of Highway 78 intersection. It's currently a vacant metal building. The site will be improved to include 66 parking spaces. Bicycle parking is required. At least 4 bicycle spaces should be provided. Not all areas of parking meet the required 8-foot landscape border. The DRB has the authority to reduce those requirements. A full landscape plan and photometric plan are still required. The existing metal building will be refurbished with a small addition to the front, including a taller facade wall to mask the low pitch roof. The addition will serve as an entryway into the building and will allow for space in front for landscaping. Mechanicals are located on the side of the building on the ground behind a screening fence. The DRB will need to approve the placement of a storage container on the property behind the building. The addition and existing building will be clad in James Hardy plank cementitious siding materials with colors to be determined later. Aluminum storefront units to be used for the front facade addressing the streets. So I can turn it over to Aaron and go from there.
Awesome. Well, thank y'all for being here, volunteering your time. My name is Aaron Schmidt. I'm with Seymour Whiteside. This is Kirsten Abramson, correct? With Lean Tune Studios. And then this is Mr. Glenn Wood with Seacoast. So we're here tonight. Great news, no vote, but we're here to take any and all advice that y'all have and thoughts so that we can take it, put it into a plan for preliminary, and we can come back and we can start to have even further of a conversation. So we love the opportunity for conceptual review because we get to hear everything that y'all have and we can take it and compartmentalize it. And then we can come up with something that works best for us and the town. So again, we really appreciate your time. So to start, I'll go ahead and run us through the site plan. We will then, I'll have Kirsten run through the architecture part of it. And then really all 3 of us are here to answer any question that you have and really take whatever that you have back with us. So, Tim, I think the best thing to do is for us to look at the rendering. I think that clearly kind of depicts. And then if we got to go back and look at measurements or whatever it may be, we can flip back to the more technical site plan. Yes, sir. This one. So, so as you can see, what we're doing here is we're taking an existing building that is vacant right now, and we're going to upfit it for a meeting space and for a gathering space for Seacoast Church. 606 Gum Street sits directly across the street. Yes, sir.
Is this an extension of the existing Seacoast facility?
It will be. Yes, sir. Yeah. So, and you you beat me to it. So right across the street is the existing Seacoast campus. So there's a couple things that they're trying to accomplish here, right? They want to have the additional space, one, for further growth as Seacoast. Also, to service their parking as they continue to grow, they want to have spaces that are both close to this new building here or new use here, but then also to service their existing campus as well. And so that's why you see the amount of parking that you see here. So with that, there are a couple site constraints that you can see. One is, since the building is set on the site, working parking in and around it is a little bit of a constraint for us. That brings up the 8-foot the 8-foot buffer requirement and kind of bringing it down to size. And for us, that happens on the plan left side here, where you see that planted buffer in between the angled parking. It is actually, we're only accomplishing at its minimum width, we're accomplishing about 5.5 feet. At its most width, we're accomplishing about 6 feet. So we're about, what is that, 2.5 feet off of the required 8-foot buffer. The tough thing is that we're constricted by trying to get parking in there while also we can't move the building. So if we could, we would. With that said, one of the other kind of restrictions that we have in the main body of the parking, we have 22-foot drive aisles instead of 24-foot. Again, that lends itself to allow the 8-foot buffer on the right side, while also trying to achieve larger parking islands for the trees that are required per code. But then also what it does achieve for us is it allows us to slide in some compact parking. As you pull into the site, they're the parking spots. I think there's 4 of them or 5 of them right there front left when you pull into the main entrance there. Those compact spots allow us to put a perimeter planting for a short period, but a perimeter planting along the front foundation of the building and along that side until we go to the ADA spots, which we have to achieve the standard 9x18 there. So with that said, we also have wetlands that are along the back side of this property. We are staying out of those wetlands. We're also staying out of the trees that are back there as well. We do have a buffer on the wetland line. So we're respecting those as well. So for our 1.3 acre site, we're down to about 1 acre of area that we can work with. I know looking at this, you're probably like, where's the detention? We're going to go underground with the detention here. So the detention will be underneath the parking lot. Something that we are aware of, and we are working with the town as we've had some preliminary meetings. This site does sit within a special protection area. So there are additional requirements that we will be meeting from a stormwater standpoint for this site. We will be getting crafty to some degree with underground. It may, I can't speak to what it is exactly right now as we're in the preliminary phases of this thing, but it may lend itself to some permeable paving or looking at other kind of green practices as we try to maximize this site while also dealing with the stormwater. So with that, the only other thing that I can point out to you is the town does have a requirement as far as the parking cannot extend further than the front of the building. With this is a existing building, but we are attaching and really building an extension to the front of the building. 1, to kind of give it a breakup, but 2, also to achieve the parking that we need and the requirement that the town has as far as the edge of building being further than the parking is. So with that, I'll lead it over to Kirsten and she'll take you through the architectural part, and then we're here to answer anything and everything you have.
Great, thank you. We can probably shift to the plan, Tim, if that's all right. Let's go to the floor plan, if you don't mind. So some things that I just want to point out in looking at this a little closer is that, and this orientation is a little different. So the Gum Street is now on your right, and the addition that we're popping out from the existing pre-engineered metal building footprint is just that small bump out on the right side. We do have quite a bit of mechanical that we are lining up here on Plan South. And that will be enclosed with a fence So that will give some relief to that elevation, which you'll see in a minute. The note that we have some screen walls here in the lower right-hand corner of that bump out that mask the electrical panels and the fire access hookup to that riser room in that spot. So those are conveniently located on the front of the building, but we don't want to visually see them, so they are screened. The container that we're talking about, shipping container, is the rectangular form on the left side of the plan with double doors oriented towards the back side of the site. So you can see that we have two doors exiting where that container shipping container is located. The other door access are along the plan north, where you can get into the multi-purpose space from the parking into some common areas, storage and support space like the kitchen area. But the main entrance is coming into that that addition on the front, but oriented towards the area where the most of the parking is located. I can go to the elevations now. So the lower right is the front elevation, which allows us to, you have a very low pitched pre-engineered metal building with a metal roof. We are creating a slightly higher pitched facade to give it more of a presence on the street, mask the existing volume behind, and it also allows us to project towards the street with a, stepping down to a smaller scale and like creating more of like a pedestrian connection to the street. You can see on the left side, there is that the hinting of the beginning of that screening fence that hides the mechanical units on the left. You see that the screen, there's like a little small screen that bumps out where that Seacoast signage is. That's the beginning of the screening wall to hide the electrical connections and riser connections, fire access. There's a covering to your right that provides sun and rain protection as you enter the building from that side entrance, but we have a storefront glass system so that it's friendly to the street, but we're entering on the side of that. So if you go up to elevation 3, which is in the middle of the drawing, you can see the front entrance on the left, where you're actually entering in a glass entrance in that lower roof. And then and you can start to see the hint of that, the elevated, the facade that's higher than the roof line behind. And then those side entrances that I spoke about, one going into the multi-purpose space, we're covering with a lower roof. The container is on your right, the shipping container. And then if you look at the top elevation, that is the elevation that you can see from 78, Highway 78 right now. And that has the screening of the mechanical units and the screen wall behind, adjacent to that entryway. The rear elevation just simply shows you the 2 exit doors and the shipping container holding space there. You can see the lower roof line against the higher facade elevation there. The materials, we're exploring materials right now, but looking at sort of a panelized system on the front with sort of just a field background for the rest of the volume, and letting some of the other elements such as the fences and the roof lines and some of the landscaping start to break up the space. Any questions?
One other thing that I did want to note was, just so that Tim can get the
Yeah.
recording. One of the other things that I did want to note was the shipping container in the back. It is for a service. It is not just storage. Seacoast actually offers a car care service that they run through that shipping container. So, Glenn, do you want to speak just briefly to that? Sorry.
My name is Glenn Wood. I'm the administrator for Seacoast Church. The car care ministry is one of our outreaches to the community, primarily directed towards single moms, to have them bring their car in to do basic oil changes, those kind of things. It works well to have kind of all the supplies in one area within that, so that, again, we also felt putting it behind the building helps screen it from the street, as well as gives it easy access for use on the weekends for the car care ministry. Out of this building, we also do a food pantry that is currently done across the street at the campus. Again, moving it over here just gives them a little bit more space, a little bit to expand that onto a more regular basis than they currently do. And again, just in terms of usage, would be used during the week as well as on the weekend as part of our services. So certainly glad to answer any questions along that line. We were interested in this, as they said, is primarily for the parking, just to give us a little bit more room, especially on the weekends, to be able to pick up some additional parking. Plus, it also gives us a little bit more room for ministry events.
Awesome. And so with that, the only other thing I have is, I don't know if you guys were able to roll through, or if you've actually seen it out there, what the existing building looks like versus what we're presenting with today, just to bring some context to what an upfit we are trying to accomplish here.
That photo on the upper left is the front elevation facing Gum Street. The photo in the middle of the field there is that one right there, is the left side, the left side of that elevation. That's the one you can see from Highway 78 across the parking lot of the adjacent building. Yeah, and there it is as well.
I just wanted to draw a little bit of attention to that. So, but with that, we're happy to answer any and all questions here, any and all comments. Again, we just really appreciate your time.
Can you go back to the site plan? So this mechanical area on the left-hand side of the building, that's brand new.
Yes, sir.
And that's infringing on your ability to do the side yard and all this other stuff?
That is infringing on, yes, sir, a part of that buffer that we have to accomplish.
And access doors are swinging into drive aisles. Why did you choose to take up that much space on that valuable side for mechanical equipment?
So there's a couple reasons behind it, and I'll allow Kirsten to jump in here as well. One of those being, with it being on that side, there was a one-way out on that side versus on the other side of this, we are planning for a full access. Because of that, we can now slim down the lane from it being a regular 24-foot down to 12.5 with the angled parking. So we were able to maximize our space better on the left side than we were to put it on the right. In the rear, we had to dedicate that area to screening the car care service back there. So this side kind of lent itself to that. The reason for as large as it is due to that equipment sizing to service this building. We tried to look at minimizing that space as much as we could, and this is the most minimal that we could get it. The swinging of those gates are only if there's any kind of maintenance. It's not that those swing open any and all times. So only if there was some type of maintenance issue should those gates be opened.
Where's the existing equipment that serves that building?
So currently there were only 2 small units, because originally basically this building had a front office area of about 600 square feet that was heated and cooled. The rest of it was an open warehouse. It was immediately before we purchased it, it was a metal, company that sold metal siding and metal roofing. So they had their equipment in the back. It was not heated and cooled. So there was very minimal equipment, AC equipment for the building, just because they were only heating and cooling, I'll say 800 square feet. I'm taking a guess. As opposed to which is we're having to heat and cool, 5,500 square feet, with people in it, which obviously, the heat loads, required to do that. So it was substantially more equipment than was ever there before.
I will also say that it is not it's a very low pitch roof. So and it's a pre-engineered metal building. So we can't be hanging heavy equipment off of something we can't structurally know what's going on there. So, we're left to having units on the ground outside. There are 2 package units that are serving the large open multipurpose space, and then a smaller unit serving some of the bathrooms and the smaller rooms inside. So it's we really kind of backed ourselves into what those size units are and what the clearances are, and that's where we are with that request for reduced buffer.
Are there not currently 2 curb cuts for this site? Is that correct?
Curb cuts is a tough
Yeah.
one, just because currently what happens is there is just rock within the right of way that acts as parking in front of, it's basically head-in parking, but technically speaking, I don't even think it's supposed to be there. It's just over time it lent itself to that. There is, where you see the full access, there is an access there where there's a gate. That's what caused that to be there. But then for circulation purposes, we've gone ahead and added that second entrance or exit.
I was gonna say on the left-hand side, basically is a grassed area now for truck access to bring materials in and out.
Yeah, there is an existing ramp and roll-up door on that left side.
On the left side. They basically have just used both sides of it for ingress and egress.
So I guess my question is, are you guys going to have to go to DOT to get an encroachment for both of these, or are they considered existing?
So it is a town road, so we'll go through staff here for this. But we will have to work with staff as far as what that encroachment looks like for these 2. Well, one full access and the other one is just an egress. It's just an exit.
Why does the sidewalk not continue along the frontage?
So that was actually going to be one of the questions that I asked today. Tim, is it required per the town in order to continue the sidewalk along the full frontage?
Yes, technically it should be the full frontage.
Okay, that's fine.
In certain instances, staff does have the ability to waive that requirement. You can see there's sidewalk at down the road on the other side. There's none on the actual Seacoast side. So I don't know if we would demand it.
Sure.
But I think we would want to see a connection. If you're using this as remote parking, we would want safe crossing.
I think that's a great idea. And that's one of the points that I was going to bring up to y'all is, and we've actually discussed it, is exploring an option of creating a safe way to maneuver from this side to the other side, especially since they're both owned by Seacoast and both operated essentially at the same time. So that is definitely something that we'll be looking into to provide when we get to preliminary.
I think that's key.
Yes, sir.
To connect the 2
Yep.
facilities
Perfect.
in a safe way. I think the mechanicals could be handled differently. I want to harp on that side because you're using valuable land.
Mhm.
You can easily split this up to the back. It doesn't seem like you're using the back where the container is. You can have a unit on the left, unit on the right. You can still deal with egress. You can have the bathroom units located in the front, on the side. So I think there's other avenues to look at so that you're not sacrificing land.
Sure.
Especially that, valuable land. So you may want to look at that.
Okay. The only other thing I will add is when looking at the mechanical units on the back, doing kind of like a preliminary noise kind of study, it seemed as if the mechanical units on the back would provide more of a noise intrusion into the building than it did on the side. But it's definitely something we'll go back and study and see what we can.
I think
do
that's
to-
just a mechanical issue, you know,
Sure. Well, I appreciate
vibration.
it. Yeah.
And also, you didn't talk about the materials and whether or not it matches the main church. And if it doesn't, why not?
Yeah, the main church is all white brick right now, and I guess it had been a brick.
Software manufacturing for years, so.
Yeah. And initially, when at least I was engaged in the project, we were going to keep the siding, the metal siding that was there. That was an original.
And front, the current facade on the front does have brick. The challenge is that brick is already, I'll just say, separating from the building. So we knew we were gonna have to remove the brick anyway because of, it just wasn't well manufactured. And so we knew we were gonna have to remove it and then just trying to figure out what makes sense in terms of materials.
So is that on your future program to renovate the main church? Is that what you're saying?
There are some discussions long-term, but nothing is currently being designed. We don't have, we kind of got some ideas, but one of the things as a church, one of the things we did is we actually recently planted a campus over in King Bay to try, because again, part of what we're trying to do is to move people out of one building to create some more space. So we did that, and we thought we would have a little bit of a break before we filled back up. We had a break of about 2 weeks and we're back full again. So we're also now looking at planting one over in Summers Corner. So we're in the early phases of that. So again, conceptually, we're looking at trying to figure out how to best serve Somerville. And I think it's going to be multiple campuses or multiple locations. So I think our initial plan or immediate plan, I would say, would be a Summers Corner before we would look at doing something else on East 5th North Street. Long term, yes, I think we will do something, but that's not our immediate focus.
One other question I had is the shipping container in the back. Will it be platted in something that matches whatever you guys are going to end up doing to the renovation of the main building, or is it just be a shipping container sitting in the back?
It currently is a shipping container that's painted to match the building. We have, if that's something we needed to do, so we're certainly looking at it. It wasn't our initial concept, but we certainly take a look at that.
We looked at options of fencing it, basically screening it the same way that we were looking at screening the mechanical units. So incorporating that same type of screening into that, it's an option for us.
And there are elevations showing that option.
Does it have to be located at the rear of this building? Could that container not be somewhere else on the site?
Challenge is going to be keeping it out of the wetlands, and again, that's more of the civil side. If they could come up with a better place,
Okay.
We're open to it. But again, it's working with, we already went to the Corps and had the wetlands delineated. We know what all that is, so that's all been done.
Okay.
And we're trying to stay out of that, as well as the drainage through Somerville and all that goes into that, which I'm glad that we have seen the Whitesides, because they understand it way better than I do. I conceptually understand what they want to do, but again, if another place could be found, that's great. Again, we're also trying to maximize the number of parking spaces. So I figure if I'm moving it, we could put it in a parking space, but now what I've done is I've just lost the parking space.
Right.
Is the public area of this building meant to be an overflow, or will it have its own activities? So that it becomes a destination and not, you can't accommodate them in the main church, go to the site across the street.
I think the initial idea was support space for it, although I think currently, especially until, as quickly as we could get this done, until we could create a Summers Corner campus, I think it would be an additional meeting space on Sunday morning for obviously private for adults, because obviously we don't have kid space and all that. We do across the street, so this would be probably geared towards just adults.
And then I guess the destination piece of it comes from the ministries that they run out of it, not necessarily just on Sunday morning, but during the week as well. That's kind of what drives people to this place as well.
We all, we have done a warming shelter out of our, the building across the street for, I want to say 2 years. And again, continue to look at it. One of the ideas at one point was considering trying to do the warming shelter in this building. Would it make more sense? Well, one of the things I think we found this year during the winter was we had way more interest in people coming in the evenings. And so honestly, we don't think that there's enough space to do it in this one. So we're probably gonna end up leaving it across the street at our existing building. But again, part of Seacoast and part of our mission is to be an outreach to the community, and however that whatever that makes sense. I don't want to say we would never do a warming shelter out of here, but currently I think we have, based on this year, we're going to probably leave it across the street, just because of space issues and number of people.
I would say from a elevation detail perspective, it should be tied to the main church. So it should be easy to do a life cycle study of the, existing church as far as exterior material in order so that you can make a long-term decision for this building on what the exterior is going to be. And I think you should come back with that information when you submit the preliminary. So that we're not making a decision out of context,
Yeah.
knowing that this is going to be tied together.
Right. And answering that brick question, like cladding the entire building in brick, you're going to have to extend the slab, and it has a ripple effect to that. I think I've given consideration to making that enhanced facade backdrop piece. That could be brick with the downscaling of that front piece. That might be a gesture to connect across the street while still cladding, not implicating additional, slab
that's
structure that's
acceptable.
needed around the other three sides. We also have an elevation change on that side where you have the mechanical. It drops by about 24 inches or so. So you're already elevated. You have an elevated slab at that point. So any work would require building that up, and any brick would actually increase the volume of the building that we already are constrained by. So if we could certainly look at like having a brick element on the front of the building to tie back to the yeah.
I think the sites would be partially also because it's a metal building.
Yeah.
So you've got an existing roof with an overhang.
Yep.
Now, if I put brick now
Yeah.
I also have to then extend that, which
Yeah. We're already gonna have to look at something like that.
I'm fine with taking.
We understand.
Yeah.
We understand.
Regardless,
Yeah.
it's a great suggestion.
Yeah. And I will say about the mechanical, we've looked at that at we have really vetted this in so many ways. Because of the metal building and the girt system that are the horizontal steel members that kind of create an area that you can't use, we are coming up with the supply and return ducts into the building and able to use this zone that is kind of not very well used, but still allows, if we wanted to look at the floor plan, it allows us to bring that ductwork into the central, see those little bump out areas. So we've done a study on the seating arrangement. So if it's, for whatever events or multi-purpose space that it would house, that we have the proper aisle widths, and that works a lot better than impacting the stage area that's on your plan left with bringing in the ductwork on that side. So we've gotten down to like inches on how to make this work. So I would really love it if you would consider the buffer
Tim,
reduction.
were they looking for?
It's just conceptual.
Right.
We're not voting.
Right.
But I think this is a great example of redevelopment infill. And I would personally be willing to give on the buffer requirement in order to see something like this happen with what's there existing.
Any other questions, comments from you?
I think we about laid them all out there.
I might add just one, can you go to the elevations again, just so you can see the areas that have a little square around each one are showing the screening continuing past the shipping container. So in elevation form, it has two sides that it's masking the shipping container, not on the rear, but just a screen wall on
on
each
the
side.
sides, I guess, to hide it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was represented as an option, a screen fence option.
Gotcha.
Is it cost prohibitive just to build a building addition to replace what the shipping container gives you?
Everything's possible. Part of what I'm trying to do is trying to, not spend money I don't have to, just so we can redeploy that other areas. If that, we needed to look at it, we certainly could. It just wasn't our first option. Question for you.
It's a shipping container, so they open at either end. If you do the screening walls at the long ends, are we cutting a new hole or a new door?
We actually have a shipping container that has side doors. And we started out with
that's nice.
them the other way, and then they were able to locate one that has the side doors. So it freed up. We had a little bit of a tricky situation with having two containers opening on the ends and trying to get the egress out of the rear of the building. So reducing it to one and having those side doors really simplified that. Yes.
I mean, it'd be my preference that it gets screened, particularly with what's behind it. That's just me though.
I mean, it seems like a pretty general consensus as far as screening it. Even if you really can't see it, if you are coming from 78, there's a potential to at least kind of glance over and see it to some degree. So I hear the board as far as saying screening.
Okay.
Thank you. Guys. That's
Awesome.
really
Well,
good.
Thank
all
you.
again for
Thank
your
you very
time.
much.
Yes, please sign if you spoke. The last item on the agenda was withdrawn by the applicant. So there actually is not another item on the agenda. Though we had nothing on miscellaneous, I did have something I wanted to bring up. I won't be here next month. I will be taking the job at North Charleston, the planning director position there. So thank you. But so we're working out the details on who's going to be here for DRB going forward. So
Awesome. Well, we've enjoyed having you. You've been a huge asset to the town, and we absolutely wish you the best.
thank you.
I'm really proud to be able to work with you. So really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You've been a huge help.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you all. Thank you all again. Appreciate it. See you tomorrow.
That's right.
And with that being said, there's nothing else.
All right, so let's have a motion for approval or
Motion to dismiss.
to dismiss. I'm in. Second,
All in favor?
let's go.